welcome to another episode or English-German lesson with Stefan's Garage, precisely Stefan's 10 today. And we have a beautiful 2019 Road Glide Special in hot rod red candy. I hope I got the color right. You know, I have trouble with colors. And this beautiful bike is getting a full Wilbers Nivomat, and as I don't have a Road Glide Nivomat installed, just the CVO, yeah, I know how sensitive this topic is regarding Road Glide install videos and riding a street glide. This will be especially for all you shark nose faring guys, the proper install video. But first we will take a quick spin around the bike, check its beauty, and then we will do the install. See the beauty of the candy flakes here. A special custom paint. I think it was only available in 19 for the roadglide and streetglide specials and in 18 for the roadking. And especially if you're riding with a passenger, you need to have a proper suspension. And that's what we are going to do. Okay, let's do the unboxing. This is the German packaging. So in the US or in Australia, greetings to Danny. And Matt, of course, the packaging might be a little bit different. So what we do have, some instructions or install instructions, then to have it road legal in Europe, certification for the rear shocks and the fork springs. Those are important. Here we have the Wilbers fork springs for the Milwaukee 8 front fork with a dual damping valve. Then we have the right hand conventional shock, the left hand self-leveling shock. Later versions have the new red Wilbers sticker, but the hardware is exactly the same. Don't worry if your sticker is red. Then we have plenty of fork oil, 2 liters of SAE 10 viscosity for this application. Mostly underneath everything we have a small spring spanner tool for the initial adjustment. Today's install with the Road Glide Special or ST, we reuse the stock preload sleeves. There are some kits for Road Glide Limited or Ultra Limited where the stock sleeves need to be replaced by preload bushings provided by Wilbers in the kit. So if you have those preload bushings in the kit, change them. If they are not in the kit, reuse the stock ones. Let's have a look what tools we need for the install. Basically, not too many special tools. Well, let's start with some inch sockets, 1/4 inch Allen, and then 3.8 normal socket, 3/4 socket, and a 15/16 for the front axle nut, as well as some metric tools, 19mm Allen, 6mm Allen, and a 10mm 12 point. Very important that it's a millimeter and 12 point for the brake calipers. Then Torx 25, just a flathead screwdriver, a Sharpie to do some markings, of course some brake cleaner, a torque wrench, some blue Loctite, some masking tape, a simple oil filter tool, and a measure stick or meter stick measuring device, kind of a ruler to do the sag adjustment and the oil level adjustment. And for that I have an fork oil tool or oil level tool. You can get those for around 25 euros at Lewis or on Amazon. They're not expensive and they save a lot of time. So we will remove the fender, the front wheel, everything. And then of course we need to remove the instrument cluster in order to get to the upper fork pinch bolts. And then we will open up the fork legs. Stay tuned. Okay, we start with removing the front fender. And I showed you the basic tools. I've got some more sophisticated ones, as this is not my first rodeo. Now carefully along the front tire, get the fender out. Ich habe ihn komplett. So that was the 1/4" Allen socket. Now we need the 10mm 12 point for the brake calipers. Same on this side. Wrap the brake caliper as well, just to make sure that we're not damaging any paint. We need the 15/16 for the front axle, and as the pinch bolt is still tight, we can just loosen the axle nut here. Next metric application is this 6mm Allen. The pinch bolt here for the front axle. As this bike only has a less than 3,000 miles or 4,000 Ks, we are just doing the simple oil change and fork spring swap, so we just loosen this screw, we don't need to remove it. And now with a little bit of tenderness, carefully remove the front axle. And put the front wheel aside. I've already shown different ways of how to remove the cluster here, but now the official one. Insert the key, and then there's a small tab on the left hand side. You push against the tab from underneath, and then you can turn the key counterclockwise a little bit further, and then the whole assembly is loose. but very careful. Inside here are 3 different layers that shouldn't be misaligned, otherwise you need a special tool. It's going to be real big pain. You may also just loosen the instrument cluster to get to the top pinch bolts, but now it's easier. And now with the ignition switch removed, it's very easy. Just lift this tab on the rear and then you can remove it. And this is very delicate. It breaks easily, and the whole piece is around 100 US or 100 euros. So you better be careful.
Wow.
Just remove the 2 T25 torques. Without removing the ignition switch, normally you can just tilt the instrument cluster a little bit, remove the bracket carefully, and then you have enough space to have access to the upper fork pinch bolt. I show it later, but we will remove it totally to have it out of the way. Just lift the safety pins, and then you can easily remove the 3 connectors. And here we go. And now we have access to the top pinch bolts in order to remove the fork legs. For the fork legs, it's inch time again. We need a 1/4 Allen socket, and I will first remove the 2. This is super genau. The 2 pinch bolts on the lower triple tree. And then the one on the upper, and then be prepared to assist the fork leg. Kannst du das von der Seite, dass man sieht, wie es rauskommt? And here we have the first one. 19mm metric in order to open it. And for that you need to be careful. Those Milwaukee 8 forks have quite some preload, so it's a mixture between being careful and knowing what to do. For that I have the 90mm on an impact wrench. I got a thick leather glove, and I will just put a little bit of weight on top of the fork leg, that it's just starting to Springload zum Federn. Schaut mal, was Federn auf Englisch heißt. And now assist the top cap with a little bit of belly fat, and you feel it when it's open. The more you press, the more load will be on the fork cap. So it's just the right amount of tension, then it's very easy. Otherwise, have a second one guiding you, and be extremely careful. For the roadglidespecial, we will reuse the stock preload bushings. We will reuse the washer. Of course, we will reuse the fork cap. We won't reuse the oil, and we won't reuse the fork spring. The fork we will reuse. and then just give it around 5 to 10 minutes time to drain the oil. Wait a little bit. If it's just small droplets, then work a little bit on the fork leg and let it drain as well. I will just clean all the other stuff and then we will already assemble the first fork leg. Now we refill the fork leg with the Wilbers oil. And it's important to bleed the fork leg. Just have a look inside. The oil level now is about 10 centimeters. And there's a lot of air in the fork leg, therefore we need to bleed the fork. Jetzt einfach hier unten halten, dass es nicht nach oben weg kann. And it doesn't work with a rubber glove, so just create a vacuum and an overpressure. And a vacuum and overpressure. Do this around 20 times. Wäre schön, wenn ihr das auch beschleunigen kann, wenn über ein Video. Okay, bleeding is finished, and now have a look how far the oil level is decreased. So around 20 centimeters, so it's very important to do that. Now the final fill. And you see Wilbers provided plenty of oil for the operation. Fixes? Yeah. Oil level is recommended for this bike 110 millimeters. And as this is not the first fork, I have the special tool. So it's calibrated to 110. Finger oben drauf bitte. And we will just suck out the overfill oil. That's it. So we have exactly 110. Now the new Wilbers spring and the cleaned stock washer. Note, the Wilbers spring needs to be mounted the opposite way, so with the progressive, the thicker end at the top. That's important for the correct oil level. The washer is inside. We're still missing the preload sleeve. However, this fine thread is pretty difficult to get it engaged, especially under pressure, so we will just mark the position where the thread is starting. This is just a regular 90mm Allen. It's just a special tool for my application. So it's easier to close the fork. So, jetzt musst du auf die Seite gehen, Tom. Wirklich auf die Seite, ich hab's komplett.
Okay, ich gehe weg.
Yeah. Now we need a safety area because there's a lot of tension here. Ah, da kommt der. Carefully press it down.
Servus.
Bro, wir haben gerade Fernsehen da.
Hey, du, ich fahr schnell zum Markus, gibst mir die Winkel. Also, tu ich gleich gerade.
And without any cutting at the first attempt. Das schneiden wir nicht raus. Du bist live dabei.
Sehr gut.
Okay, now we will clean it and then torque it down with the correct torque spec. Auch am Sonntag bedient, Klaus, das ist ja perfekt. Das müssen wir rausschneiden, sonst hast du einen Augen am Sonntag. Das machen wir gleich. So the fork tube is cleaned, all the Sharpie markings are removed. The recommended torque spec for this one is as Harley is always giving a variety of torque between 30 and 80 Newton meters. Stop laughing or laughing. Continue loving, but stop laughing. And we will use 45 Newton meters. So, just to 45. And in order not to need a vise, I have the simple oil filter wrench, and as 45 Newton meters is not too much, that's sufficient to proper torque down the forklift. Now the first one is ready to go. We will just install it. So just about that size above the upper triple tree. And the fine adjustment will be made with the second fork leg. The fork pinch balls are torqued down with 22 Newton meters. First the top one. That's just for the camera, doesn't necessarily have to be the top one first. And now the lower ones. Kommst du von da hin? Nee, von da. And on the lower one there are two pinch balls. So we need to repeat this a couple of times. First one is tight. Now the second one. And by tightening the second one, we loosened the first one a little bit. So you see, once again, and after 3 applications it is fine. Okay, first fork leg is done. The second leg we use the axle as an aid. And now you need to figure out the exact position of the still loose fork leg, that the axle is moving without any resistance. Might need a few attempts, so we will just let's check top of the fork. Okay, now we will mount the front wheel. Be extremely careful with the direction. Da ist er. Okay, here we have the turn direction. You can see it as well by the color of the wheel bearings. As a Harley is not just any piece of machine, be gentle. You see, no force required. And it's extremely important when you tighten the front axle nut that the ABS sensor is not forced out of its position. So it has to be seated onto the fork tube or the fork slider it is. Especially when you start turning it. You need the flat head screwdriver in order to keep the axle in position. And then during the first turns, make sure that the ABS sensor stays in place. Okay, torque is 98 Newton meters. And like always in aviation, we need a second pair of eyes to double check everything, especially the important ones. And now we continue with the brake calipers. Brake calipers don't get any Loctite. So just the pure make sure the threads are engaged before using any power tools. Otherwise it's going to be an expensive experience. Okay, for the brake calipers, 45 Newton meters. Du musst ja schauen.
45, yeah.
Da brauchst du jetzt nicht klicken raus. Und dann drücken gerne auf den Bremshebel. After the brakes are tightened and they have been removed, always operate the brake lever that the brake pads are reattached onto the discs. And now the pinch bolt, 27 Newton meters. Achso. One very important detail, as this is a special with the low rear shocks and the Wilbers are always the taller rear shocks, we need to readjust the headlight or the headlamp. If it was proper adjusted, then on the roadglide models, only special or CVO, not the limited ones with the already taller shocks. Right here behind the fairing is a small plastic nut. That's the adjuster. Wenn wir so nicht draufkriegen. And just unscrew this adjuster by 2 turns. A half, 1 turn, 1.5, 2. So 2 full revs, unscrew, and then the adjustment should be right again. And this is the 3/8 or 9mm metric will fit as well. Now the fender. The bolts are prepared with some blue Loctite. Always wise to have a second person adjusting here or to have a good insurance. and the 4 fender bolts will be torqued down with 25 Newton meters. And now we reattach the dashboard. Every connector should have a distinctive click, and then you know that everything is correct. There's only one way to reconnect these things. And then very careful, there's a small plastic nose, plastic Nase, and this needs to fit into the fork bracket cover over here. Now everything is nice and seated. Then the T25. Use your imagination how this screw might look. Careful with those T25s, as the threads inside the instrument housing are just plastic. So one thing I just noticed and I don't like is over here.
Yeah, you're right.
And as Tom gets special treatment, this is the way a cable binder should look like.
Thanks a lot.
Cable strap, of course. Now careful with the plastic tab. You heard the knack, so it's seated well. And now we have to readjust the ignition switch in the same position as the handlebar was before, otherwise we will get in trouble. And then very careful, insert it, and then you will hear the magic click, or you won't hear it. I pressed it down a little bit too far, so be very careful and check that everything is operating, that the fork lock is operating. Yes, it is. And we have ignition and we have accessory. So, as I mentioned, I pressed it down a little bit too far, so be very careful when you remove the ignition switch. It might work as well, it does work as well with the ignition switch installed. Good, ready. The front is finished, and now we will lower the bike and then readjust the bike lift to the rear, that we are just lifting the rear tire. Just watch it. Remove the saddlebags, and as this one has some special neon lights, we need to disconnect them here before removing the bags. So your regular roadglidespecial saddlebags shouldn't have any connectors, but the CVO ones do have. But for the CVO there's a special video. Very careful. And we might need a second set of hands. So we will return after these messages. Ah ne, so geht's. And now we get rid of these toys. Always start with the top one and then loosen the lower one. Der Klausi ist wieder heim.
Ja.
Aber das muss wahrscheinlich bei mir da lassen, oder?
Ha? Weiß ich nicht, ob du die brauchst.
Ja, let's English a little bit. Now it's time for the good stuff.
Yes. It's Christmas time.
It's Christmas time in May. Yeah. Just a small side-by-side comparison.
Oh, a little bit.
So mounting direction for this one is Wilbers sticker facing to the rear, because here's a slot, and so all the water when you wash the bike or when it's raining will drain. So Wilbers sticker facing to the rear. Harley recommends Loctite, however they are not applying Loctite at the factory because these bolts are brand new without any Loctite. And you see the Wilbers shocks are taller, so the 13-inch shocks like on a roadglide ST, so you get the same lean angle like on an ST, and therefore I prefer those simple bike lifts because you can very precisely lift the bike or lower it maybe again. That you get those bolts engaged by hand. Like this. And now side-by-side comparison with the Magic Nivomart shock. With the Magic Nivomart shock and the not so magic Harley stock shock. Mounting direction of the left-hand shock is very important. As well, the Wilbers sticker needs to face to the rear. However, on the left-hand shock, there's another sticker for German legislation reasons, so the white one. So always the Wilbers stickers facing to the rear. On newer kits, it is a red sticker, so don't be surprised, but it will still say Wilbers. There might be a very, very slight difference in length, so yeah, it's almost nothing, but we need to lower the bike just a little bit, and therefore I always advise or recommend to install the right hand shock first, because this one can more easily be compressed a little bit. 90 Newton meters for the rear shock bolts on the Milwaukee 8. Be very careful here with the exhaust. There's not much clearance between the wrench and the exhaust shield. then the install is almost finished. We just need to install the saddlebags, and we need, it's very important, we need to do the 20mm rear sag adjustment with the owner of the bike, and then you won't ever need to readjust the Wilbers again. Or maybe if you gain or lose a lot of weight, then you have to, but if you keep the bike, saddlebag removal is only in the future if you clean the bike, but not for adjusting anything on the suspension. For the rear sag adjustment, make sure that the rear tire is off the ground. Now it is lifted. Okay. And then take a base measurement with a measuring tape, or with, I made a ruler as I'm doing a lot of installs. And so I mark this position here, and now with the bike down and the rider, only the rider sitting on it, we need to have a rider sag of 20mm. Okay, bike is lowered, the owner will jump onto it, and now just normal riding position, one foot on the footboard, the other one on the ground. And now we check the sag, and we have 27, so a little bit more than required, so we need to tighten it a little bit more. Dann einmal nur hochgehen, dass sie entlastet ist. Ja. So we just loosen the top ring, then I hold onto the spring, that the spring is not moving, and then from my experience I give it around 2 or 3 complete turns. Still a little bit too much. One more time. And it was a little bit too much. Und dann haben wir es. Noch einmal hoch. Okay, last time. Now we're good. Perfect. We just need to tighten the top ring, that everything is fixed and nothing is getting loose. So done, right hand saddlebag, and we are finished. So let's see if this giant selfie stick is working. Yeah, that was almost no proper ending of the video. However, we just turn around. There's a big storm moving in, and so Tom and Biggie needed to head back to get home dry. Therefore, we just stopped the video. However, I'm trying to get a verbal feedback from them. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for joining in, and yeah, good luck, not good luck, alles Gute, as we say in Germany, with your new Wilbers suspension.
Hi Stefan, we arrived home without a hitch. Great. The difference between Harley's suspension and the Wilbers suspension is so huge. The driving experience is much quieter and more pleasant, especially for the passenger. Thank you again, Stefan. Great work. Bye.